Once we get to a point where we're so safe that we do not enter buildings, people should not be famous.
The things you say publicly about your service is now open for public discussion.
I just want to let you know.
Put it in the safety bubble. It's money. It's not trying to save themselves money. All of what they're saying is
This on? Check, 1, 2. I'm gonna try not to knock down these cameras as I walk by. Thank you guys for coming out. We are Counterculture Inc. How's everybody doing tonight? Wild, huh? Wild. Thank you guys for trudging through the ghettos of Philadelphia to be in this gentrified building. Thank you for these guys for hosting us. We have with us today, we have Anti-Hero Podcast with Brent Tucker, me. We have the, not Conduct Unbecoming, but now you Undercoming, what is it?
The Unbecoming Pod.
Unbecoming Pod. And we have Good Cop, Bad Cop to our right with
Mike Dowd
and Nick Gerace.
All right, and if you guys don't know who they are, they're Good Cop, Bad Cop for a reason. So Nick is a retired Philly cop, and he's a good cop. And we got Mike.
Mike's a good cop.
Mike's
Just
a good
ask
guy.
him.
Thank you. So everybody, we have a really weird like mix of people in here, and that's why we're Counterculture. Raise your hand if you're a convicted felon. Sal, you can raise your hand. Go ahead.
Zing.
So we try to have everything like this. Sal's not a convicted felon, by the way, guys. The DA is just trying to fuck him up the butt, but you know he came on the Anti-Hero Podcast, and his mom Barb and his dad they came and told his story. So, but yeah, here tonight we're just bringing all these podcasts together under Counterculture Media or Counterculture Inc. And then we're gonna do this probably in every big city that we can. So thanks for Good Cop, Bad Cop for hosting us.
Yeah, man, it's our honor.
So.
Good time. Speaks for itself.
Who's the first guest we want to bring up here?
Yep. We got Lilo Brancato. You know him from Bronx Tale and The Sopranos.
Yeah, just.
So let me just introduce Lilo quickly. Lilo is the gentleman from Bronx Tale. He was a young kid in Bronx Tale. Lilo and I formed a friendship throughout the years. Lilo saw the documentary called The 7-5, representing here, and he contacted me. He said he loved the show, and then a few years later, he contacted me. They did a documentary about your life, wasted talent, or something like that, right? And so I went out and I supported him. We got a little splash in one of the newspapers. Actually, a retired cop put it together, the documentary, which was definitely a bold move. If you're in the law enforcement community, you understand how difficult that is. That most cops, when they get jammed up, the cops turn away and leave you there, on your own. And most of you deserve it, but not always. It's not a nice feeling, but it's life.
Yeah.
You suffer the consequences of your actions. And Lilo ended up getting jammed up. And then Lilo, just give a little rundown on.
Well, to talk about how I first heard about Mike, I was in college when I was jammed up, and this was like 2007.
State prison.
And I was inside with this guy who was also a former member of law enforcement, and he was, because that's the 7-5, and there was a lot of scandals back then in Brooklyn, and then there was one in the 7-3. And in the 7-3, he was part of the 7-3.
The Morgue Boys.
The Morgue Boys, they used to rob drug dealers, and they used to divvy up the money and the drugs in a morgue. And I remember him saying, he goes, we were crazy. He said, but there was this fucking one guy in the 7-5, his name was Mike Dowd. And then when I was home, I was watching Showtime, and I remember I saw the documentary, and I remember, like, when I first started, it was just, like, so engaging, and then
You know the fucking words better than me. You know it better than me. You're a scriptwriter, for Christ's sake.
Yeah. But, it was probably the best I've ever seen, that documentary. Yeah. I'm not just saying that. Sorry, I had a lot of coffee.
Has anybody ever who's seen the documentary 7-5? Go watch that shit. I watched it like 3 years ago, and then I found out. Okay, so quick story. I knew about Good Cop, Bad Cop because I've been talking to Nick this entire time. And then he just sends me, I think it was last night, he sent me like my co-host, and he was explaining stuff to me, and I wasn't getting it. Like, and he goes, he sent me that, and he's like, this is my co-host. I'm like, get the fuck out. Like, and I remember watching the documentary, and like, I mean, you did your time.
Yeah, I did my time.
Yeah.
I did 12 and a half years, yeah.
But I remember watching, like, I don't know what it was, like the deposition of evidence or something where you testified about everything that everybody did.
No, so it was called the Mullen Commission, and I agreed after much, not happy to cooperate with them, but the bottom line was I needed a friend in the courtroom, so I ended up telling them how to catch me. That's the bottom line. And they ended up, and they arrested the whole 30th precinct after that. So, yeah.
Subsequently.
It wasn't that hard. When after I wrote the game plan up, how to catch me, they went and caught the whole precinct. But throwing that back out there, Lilo had an incident. Lilo, share briefly what happened to you so we could make full closure.
What happened with me?
Yeah. You got jammed up, but the cop got killed and everything.
Yeah, we sure. Yeah.
Let's we're on Counterculture. Let's go.
I was heavily addicted to drugs and alcohol. At one time in my life, that I wasn't and still not very proud of at all. And I had a girlfriend back then. My drug addiction had gotten so bad she didn't want to be with me anymore. So I started hanging out with her dad, who was a pretty bad guy. And we went out one night, and we were both heroin addicts, crack addicts, and went to a friend's house, broke his window and the whole thing, and the next door neighbor happened to be an off-duty New York City police officer. He heard the noise, came outside. He said, "Don't move," and I turned around, and when I turned around, then but then it was a very bad situation. A situation that I think about every single day and how I wish I could go back and change. But that's what it was.
Yeah, so something that good cop, bad cop we strive for. I really believe in the system. If you're a police officer, from the time someone's arrested, they go through the system, they're rehabilitated. I believe we owe it to society, and not to be a hypocrite, you have to believe in the system for it to work. So if someone comes back out from prison and they're a good person, they're productive in society, I think you need to give them a chance. Not only for them, but for society as a whole. And if you don't, the whole system breaks down. So I can vouch. When I first heard Lilo coming up here, I was a fan of him from Bronx Tale. I'm like, I don't know if I want to interview him because of what happened. You can check him out. We interview him on our podcast. And when you listen to the real story, it's a lot different than what was out there. And the same thing with Mike Dowd. I wouldn't be working with Mike Dowd if he was the same scumbag he was in the 90s. He was a bad guy. You're not a bad guy now. But, you got to believe in the system. Mike's a good guy. He's helping police officers, first responders, military vets right now that are having a hard time coping with civilian life or their PTSD. I know for a fact Mike has helped several people talk them off the ledge, literally. So you have to give these people a chance, and it's one of the reasons why we're here. And it speaks to counterculture. We're doing our thing up here. I want to thank Anti-Hero Podcast for that too.
Yeah. So Counterculture was created as a joke to be the counter to like the Black Rifle Coffee Company, because whatever they say, that umbrella, whatever they say in the military first responder realm is scripture. That's it. There's nothing to counter it. There's no one to go, that story didn't happen. So all of their icons like we ended up just by chance asking some questions about some of their big faces. And not everybody in that culture is bad. There's tons of dudes that we talk to that are like, they just kind of stay out of it. But, you know, it is a business. It is an industry. And I don't know how many, like, wrestling fans are out there, but when we were kids, when WWF bought WCW, that's when wrestling went to shit because there was no competition anymore. So I don't know, any Tim Kennedy fans in here? No? All right, I'll make that a clip.
So let me just jump in. Lilo, what are you doing now in your life after you did your time? By the way, you weren't convicted of any murder. You had a gun, or a charge or something. You went to trial.
Yeah, I was ultimately convicted of an attempted burglary in the first degree with serious physical injury to a non-participant, sentenced to 10 years. I did 8 out of the 10.
Right.
And then, I came home and things were, pretty, very difficult.
Not easy.
But
No.
I stayed the course and, stayed sober. And I was posting a lot of inspirational stuff on Instagram. Someone took notice and said, hey, what you're doing is really great, spreading that positivity. And they had a treatment center. And they said, well, why don't you come and do that for us? And, I went to meetings and stuff like that. But after, my own opinion, because meetings may work for all, anyone out there. I'm not saying anything. But for me, after a while, the meetings they became very repetitive. And it was like the same thing. It was very culty. But then, there's the saying, we need to stay plugged in. But after a while, the meetings, I didn't want to stay plugged in at the meetings. But then I was offered this job at a treatment center, and I was doing like groups and stuff like that. I was running groups. And then I realized like what a special thing, an opportunity that I had, because you got these young kids in there struggling, with addiction, just like I was. And I remember my dad was like one of the toughest guys around. But when it came to me, this guy would like cry on the couch. And I remember that kind of stuff. And I said, shit, if I can father from crying on the couch, I'm going to do it. So I just fell in love with the whole process and just seeing these kids come in broken. And when you really care, they take notice of that. And I was able to help. You can't help everyone because, just
You
like...
saved one, you made a miracle. That's
right.
Bottom line.
But I really dedicated a large portion of my life to helping other addicts. I mean, that's because, like I said, I was there and, and I know what it takes, so...
That's fantastic. Again, it's
Yeah.
not about the act, it's about the react. As you can see, both these gentlemen are doing what they have to do. They're productive citizens right now. And I know Lilo's not done. You're going to see a lot of big things from him in the near future. Definitely
He dresses a lot better than Mike.
He definitely does. He's a lot better looking than Mike,
Hey,
too.
wait. Can we get those shirts? Are those shirts for sale? Where at?
Just Instagram, just hit me up. I'll send one to you.
That sounds shady already, but all right.
Give me your address.
I
I'll
don't know a dime. Believe me, I don't know a dime out. That's for sure.
But Mike, have you ever heard of Tim Kennedy?
I have heard of him. Yes.
But you just heard of him. You don't know.
Yeah,
anything?
I just heard of him recently. I'm a busy motherfucker. Sorry. I'm sorry. I have a hard time keeping track of my life. Never mind following the other things. So it's
Yeah.
really tough.
Yeah, Nick's been breaking hearts left and right over here in Philly because
It's the truth.
Tim Kennedy's got a lot of really hardcore fans, and they don't want to hear any truth about it. And so we're not going to shed on it too long. We've probably done, like 5 episodes? It feels like talking about it in length. Two Tim Kennedy episodes, but then we do the lives afterwards where we talk about, because when we put one out, there's a lot of shit that happens that week. And a lot of people come forward, and we'll get a whole new plethora of information that we didn't have because they didn't know to tell us until they saw the podcast. But if you don't know, Brent Tucker here is my co-host in the Anti-Hero podcast. He's former Delta Force, former Green Beret. And when we met, he was like, this Tim Kennedy stuff doesn't check out. But we're not out there actively looking for people to tear down, as they like to say. We're not trying to tear anybody down. But some things came to light, and if I remember correctly, about 6 months ago, you reached out to him and just kind of like asked, like, hey, what's going on? And he didn't want to give you any, like, was it a closed conversation?
Yeah, no, I talked to him about 6 months ago, and it was about the evacuation of Afghanistan.
Yes.
Was what originally started this. And I talked to him on the phone about it, and he was super, super defensive about it and completely controlled, kind of the whole narrative. And anytime I asked him a direct question, he just he just stayed on point. Like didn't answer anything and stayed on point. And if we're being, this getting recorded? Probably is.
It's live.
It's live.
Yeah,
It's live.
yeah,
We're live on YouTube.
Not being recorded.
No, the answer is no.
We'll keep your
What were you
secret.
going to say?
I don't care. He was kind of a dick to me, and
Shocker.
And I really didn't appreciate it, and it kind of gave me. I was like, all right, well, we could have just ended this here via conversation. I'm not going to give the details of the conversation because private conversations are private conversations. So I'm just going to talk generally about it. But it kind of gave me like, all right, and now I'm going to look a little deeper, and that was really the beginning of it.
And everybody's been asking me. It's been a very busy week. I've only seen Brent. You've been on the road for a couple days.
I feel like I've been on the road for my whole
But everybody's asking me, hey, did Brent Tucker talk to Tim Kennedy? And I'm like, I don't know, did he? And everyone's like, yeah, we think you did. And I guess you recently spoke to him, and then I asked you, and you were like, it wasn't very productive. Again.
It wasn't productive, but again, I'll be honest, and I keep private conversations private. But I asked him for another conversation, and to continue dialogue with him. Because to be honest with you, I think the same way we ended the podcast, which was this: hey, he wasn't truthful, about the things he did. I don't care. I do care, but everyone makes mistakes, and you can make mistakes. You've made mistakes. I've made mistakes. I'm not perfect. You can make mistakes, honestly, for as long as you want to make mistakes. But the real mark of a man is at some point owning up to your mistakes, and if he would do that, and this is why I continue to want to talk to him. To be honest with you, is if at some point we didn't get him to own up mistakes, and on our podcast, the very last thing we told him, which was the very last thing we did on our Rob O'Neill episode, was, hey, if you come clean and you're open and honest about this, we'll open you back as the community with open arms. I mean, I'm not going to get preachy with you, but hell, the thief on the cross,
Right.
minutes before his death, turned it around, and guess what? That guy's in heaven right now. So
I want to chime in on Tim Kennedy real quick. Lilo, thank you, sir. I know you're a busy guy.
We sent you a request, so thank you, everybody. I appreciate you all coming out tonight.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Sent you a request.
He wants a shirt.
All right. Yeah, he wants a shirt.
My home address, you can come drop it off.
Thank you, Lilo. Give him a hand, please. So I don't know if everyone out here in the audience right now knows who Tim Kennedy is, but the Anti-Hero podcast really did the veteran community a service. You should check out their podcast. I believe you have like 3 or 4. They go in depth and really break down what it is that he was doing and lying about. They're not tearing down the person. They're pretty much tearing down the myth and the lie that he's been living on and making money on, which is not right. So you guys should definitely check it out. I mean, that's pretty much correct, right?
Yeah. It's not a dig at Tim Kennedy. It's not. We're not calling him an asshole. We're very professional. We do it. We just ask questions. And I guess one thing that like any professional should have to deal with is that if you're a public figure and you're saying I did something, you should not take offense to somebody going, you have receipts. I have never heard of you. What you're saying is crazy and it's amazing. Can you prove it? And it shouldn't be like, well, I'm not proving it. So. That's kind of where it came from, and
I think the other part of that is if you embellish something. Don't get me wrong. Like we'd look silly, to be honest with you, if you just said, I went out, I caught 5 fish. I'm like, no, you caught 4 fish, and you're and we're gonna crucify
It's gonna be okay.
you over
That's
that.
okay. It's gonna be okay.
It's not.
It's
about,
8 inches. You're full of shit. Come on. It's not 8. 6 1/4. And be honest.
Yeah. So it's a lot of people come to us about, hey, this guy. We have a very specific criteria of people that we're going to look into. It has to be a massive embellishment, and it has to be a lie, right? And we have to know without a shadow of doubt that you did this lie that is big enough to be just frowned upon. I don't know the best way to say it, and you did it for money and fame. Now, and if you meet all those criteria, we will absolutely look into you.
So if you listen to Tim Kennedy, you would think he'd be like the Mike Dowd, but you go watch the 7-5, you'd be like, that's full of shit. This guy didn't do all that stuff, and he actually did. There's no embellishments there. But, you know, you go listen to Tim, man, it's really crazy. It's off the wall.
I didn't do any fucking thing.
You parked your Corvette in the lieutenant spot?
Yeah. I was pissed off. He was trying to take my girlfriend.
That was purchased with salary money.
I said, you think you're going to win, motherfucker? I put the Corvette with the price sticker still in the window right in his spot. Go fuck yourself. Come get me. I said, come get me. At that time, I was done. I can't take this anymore.
I loved it. The documentary was great. I was like,
I couldn't
the
take
balls
it.
on this guy.
I said to him one day, outside, because he tells me, you got to stop. I'm in uniform at work, all right? I walk in the fucking station. I'm 20-something years old. I'm an asshole. And the guy says, the lieutenant says to me, you got to stop seeing this girl. I said, excuse me? I said, outside these doors, you don't tell me what the fuck to do.
I loved it.
And then the next day, I parked the car in his fucking spot.
I told my supervisor that, and he did not like that.
He's trying to tell me I could date the girl or not. He's trying to bang her. I mean, come on. Give me a fucking
Yeah.
break. You're not getting her. And then I took a fat knot out like that. And he's still, you know, now he's crying. He's putting her on the TS to try and tap her. Open up Playboy magazines on the station house desk. I mean, shit, I can do that, not you.
Yeah, it's a different time back then.
Yeah. In New York, the guy got the KY in his office for the lieutenant. Well, you didn't know? You didn't know? The police chief, the chief had the KY in the fucking office. He bent the girl over only 10 times, she says. 10 times. In a year, at 10 times a week. Come on.
Do you still you don't live in New York, do you? You still live in New York City?
I'm in the area.
Yeah.
He's around. He needs it
I
for the
can
shirt.
do what you got going on. Yeah. Look.
That's HIV, Mike.
So I was gonna pass the mic over to Reagan, but he just said fuck it and left.
He's out.
He goes fill in. But yeah, back to what tonight is all about. We're gonna try and do this in every city and have these live shows because we can't ask you guys to come meet us in Orlando. Obviously, if you guys are going to Disney, you can trick the wife into like escaping for a day and coming to hang out. We just built a whole new studio. We have a huge spot to hang out in. Brent's building a bar with his bare hands. I built an IKEA desk.
He looks like he can build a bar with his bare hands. Like he's going to whittle it out of wood or some shit like that. One log.
Thanks to YouTube. I can do anything with YouTube.
We had a contractor in there I'd never seen before, and then that was the guy that Brent hired, and then Brent left. So it was me and a contractor. So, there he is. It's only your podcast.
Welcome back. Fireman.
Yeah, your handlebar mustache says differently.
So one of the big things that we were going to cover that Reagan is very passionate about is diversity in the fire industry. And how diversity would have stopped all these fires in LA.
I think diversity in the fire department is just the different types of mustache. That's diversity. You have your handlebar.
You mean spring water opposed to bottled water would have stopped the fucking fires?
Right.
So you want to shed some light on it? You want him to shed light on it?
I wanted Bo to talk for a little bit because
this is incredible because we're just kind of rolling on the go
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
I had no idea I was going to be speaking tonight, so I'm a little starstruck, but I appreciate it. So a little bit about me. My name is Bo Butler, 41 years old. I recently resigned as chief of the Londonderry Fire Department on October 7th of 2024. And that was
No one knows where Londonderry is, okay?
They're gonna know. They're gonna know. But the reason for that, at least in my opinion, a government exists before anything else to protect its citizenry. Do we all agree on that?
Yeah, yeah.
Before taxes, before anything.
they're here to help.
Yeah, right.
Good luck.
So, in the town of Londonderry, we went to add 4 firefighters to the roster, and it was voted at 70% of the public vote. So 70% is pretty significant. That's a majority of the community giving a vote of confidence for the fire department because they understand the importance of civil protection and public safety. So as fire chief, July 1 rolls around, which is the new budget season, and I say, all right, community said they wanted 13 firefighters per shift. I'm going to give them 13 firefighters per shift. I'm not going to drop down. Well, we ended up running out of my overtime monies really, really quick. And as fire chief, I got two obligations. The first obligation, most important to me, and any fire chief that's worth his weight, is the safety and well-being of his members first, and then the community second, right? I have a saying, firefighters first, mission always. Well, when it came time to make a decision for me to drop services after the community said they want 13 firefighters across all 4 fire battalions, I was faced with a moral and ethical dilemma for me in the highest order. Am I going to drop services to a community that I love and now make my firefighters, who I also love, do more with less? And the answer was no, I wasn't going to do that. So on October 7th, I stood before the town council in Londonderry and resigned because I wasn't going to have the fire department. I wasn't going to be the fire chief to sacrifice my integrity, my character, and, my honor for politics. Wasn't going to happen. And it came at a great personal cost for me, but it was worth it because your people are worth it. And, as fire chief, I think it's important that you have to start from a place of love first for your people. And that's not to say that, you love your people, you're going to treat them like children. It's quite the opposite. You love your people, so you're going to show them love and show them accountability and make them better human beings, even outside of the fire department. So when push came to shove, I had the support of my wife. She was behind me 110%, as she always is in anything. And yeah, I had resigned on October 7th. And it was funny. I was able to protect my character, my honor, and my integrity, but I really was unsure of what life looked like without the fire service. Because as veterans and as first responders, sometimes transitions are very, very difficult for us. And it was for me. I felt the same way I felt when I came home from Iraq in 2004. I was confused, I was sad, I was angry, I was hurt, and I realized just recently that I'm actively grieving. I'm actively grieving because I loved what I did and I loved who I did it with and for. And I think it's a good thing to feel that way, because if I didn't feel that way, it would mean it was all for naught, So there is life after the fire service. All kinds of opportunities are opening up for me. I never thought I'd be sitting at this table with you guys, quite honestly. And Reagan and Brendan for Conduct Unbecoming kind of put this all together for me. So I want to thank you guys. I want to thank the people that are sitting at this table in the audience, because you might not know it, but you've given me another mission to stay on azimuth and to stay focused on and to work towards. So I'm not floundering in the dark. I got a purpose again. I didn't have the fire department, but I'm filling that gap or that void with this stuff. So I really appreciate Reagan and what you guys have done for me. Thank you very much.
So MGM gave you. A
Thank
book.
you guys.
A book and a movie. You got a book and a movie deal, right?
Say again?
You got a book and a movie deal just recently, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
We're working on a book deal.
You got a book and a movie deal. So hey, fuck it.
Yes, people want to hear me.
The roof is on fire.
The roof is on fire. But one of the things that I struggle with personally, and I'll say it, perhaps I failed. I failed as a fire chief, but you know what? I'd rather fail with honor than succeed with manipulation and deceit and lies on the backs of people that I love, the firefighters and the community. That's what's important to me. And so, at the day of my judgment, at least I can go and stand before my God and say I did what I thought was the right thing to do at a great personal cost of me.
Absolutely. But I got a question for you.
Thank you, guys.
So can I interject 1 second? Because I'm gonna anyway. One of the most important things that he actually said was life after the job.
Yeah.
Everybody in here, I don't give a fuck if you fucked up or you didn't, but it's the life after the job that most guys and women can't handle because they don't know how to adjust. It doesn't mean you're crazy. It's just they don't know how to adjust or adapt or become somebody else. So You people have the only jobs in the world that the day you get the job is the day they're looking to take it from you. Remember that, how it felt. Every fucking day they were looking to take that job from you. After you swore already, like, yeah, I'm part of something great.
Yeah.
And the next day they said, hey, you did this wrong. Hey, be careful with that. You got you marked on, whatever they did to you, you know, star cards in the police academy, I got a few. You know, it just never ends. From the time you start the job till the time you get.
So true.
1 in 5 cops retires, okay? Everybody else gets jammed up, fucked up, screwed up, arrested, and retires. So it's just the way it is in those types of jobs. We don't realize it, and we don't think we have a life after it.
That's right.
I get the calls, believe it or not, I get the calls from guys with the guns in their mouth, or they just took it out and they don't know what to do before the next time they do it. And I'm actually honored to get them because it allows me, a man who screwed up his image and his family. I had a big family. My family's been in the fire department. My great-great-grandfather walked a beat in Brooklyn somewhere, I don't know where. So it's my whole life's family's legacy. And when you're on the front page of the fucking paper for 3 years, you know, and then when you come out, they put you on the front page after you do your time. It just never ended. So when you see the 7-5 documentary, if you ever do, I didn't choose that documentary. I was living a nice, quiet life. I was doing okay. No one offered me a job. No one offered me a stitch. I had to beg, borrow, and steal to get places. But I was okay with it. It was part of the price that I personally had to pay.
Yep.
But you lost that family. When you lose that family, when you go in disgrace, you lose that family. And even if you just go away, yeah, you're gone, you're done. You know, it's such a lot of guys, just when they retire, they die.
It's true.
Alcohol,
Yeah.
listen, alcohol, drug abuse, it's still suicide.
Yep.
Don't kid yourself, all right? So the bottom line is, if you know guys out there that are struggling after the job, just bring them in. You know, I was a cop. I pulled a guy over. He was driving a tow truck. He had just gotten arrested a week earlier. I didn't know who he was. He worked in the 7-7. Remember the 7-7 precinct scandal before the 7-5? 13 cops got arrested. It was all over the country. One of the guys, he was driving a tow truck for a job, you know, a week later. And I happened to show up at the scene, and he was probably doing something with, we were supposed to give an LD6 to him, whatever it's called. He goes, I just got jammed up, you know. You know, the guys, some guys go, you disgraced the badge. Fuck you, it's life. We all make mistakes. Get over it, you know. Of course it's not nice. We know what we did is wrong. We're human. Yep. So, like Nick said, you know, we all make mistakes. Just do your time, whatever the penance is. But guys need that support still. Yeah. Where do we get it? I don't know, but you got to know that, because guys are killing themselves. Last week we had a couple guys kill themselves.
It's too many.
So you're pretty damn young to be a fire chief.
41, yeah. I was promoted actually on September 11th, 2023. So talk about a very impactful day to rise to the level of chief of department, you know, for first responders in the country, quite frankly, on how significant and special that day is.
So how long were you doing firefighting?
I was on the job in Londonderry for a total of 19 years, affiliated with the department for 22.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And you were in the military before that?
Before that, yep.
You know, so all these guys up here, I don't know about Reagan, but these 3 guys are all military vets, correct?
Reagan is
thank
too,
you for your service.
Yep.
Great.
Reagan's a Marine.
Marine? Okay, all 4 of them.
Yep.
You know, we weren't in the military. I mean, you know, my hat's off to these guys. I don't know what they went through over there, and then they come home and you know, they get into public service, and it just goes to show what kind of people they are. Especially you, man. You're pretty squared away and you're focused. And,
oh man, I'll tell you,
you have a high moral compass, unlike this side of the table.
Well, speaking of that moral compass, I gotta go back to the question that I had for you.
Yes, sir.
No, you're good. And it's this. But before I agree with what you did and your answer. But there's a lot of people here enlisting that are hopefully going to be in leadership positions one day. They're going to have to face that type of question. And I believe, at least it looks like, there's a possibility of this country finally kind of waking up and saying, hey, I don't know, maybe we can stand for something. Like, we have to stop this. The craziness has gone too far, which is what you did. And I think the firefighters in LA realize that right now as well. But you had the decision to either quit or, and I'm sure you dealt with this, and this is my question, I'm sure you also struggled that I could also stay And if I stay, I can do more to protect these guys because whoever comes behind me is probably going to be the yes man, and I'm not going to get anything done anyway. What was your thought process behind that? Did you think about that? And then how did you come to the decision that you did?
That's a great question. That's an excellent question. It wasn't an emotional decision, because what I've learned, anytime you make a decision emotionally, it's always a disaster. So I had this thought, what I wanted to do, and I sat on it for quite some time. Went up and visited some friends up at the Veterans Cemetery, just trying to get affirmation to what I wanted to do in my heart. But I needed to sit in silence and, just see what came to me. But I did think of that. I did think of saying, screw it. I'll do what every other chief before me will do and kick that can and make it easy for myself. But leadership is not about that. You get promoted to a position of leadership, congratulations, you just bought a ticket to work harder and to sacrifice. And I opened up saying, you have to start with love. You have to start with love. And when you love someone, then you will sacrifice for those people. Think of your families, think of your children. Although my firemen aren't blood, I love them. We've been through a lot of stuff together, And so with leadership needs to come a hill to die on, a line to draw in the sand, and then be convicted in taking that stand. One of the things that I did before I took the job is I sat with my wife, my bride, my high school sweetheart. We have 5 children together who have saved my life in ways they will never know. And I asked her, I said, babe, there may very well come a time where I'm told as the fire chief politically to do something that I'm not down for. And I need to be able to plant that flag and stand firm to protect who I am as a human being, as a man. My children are watching. My wife's watching. And Amanda said, I'm with you, Bo. When my wife is behind me, I can move fucking mountains. And she supported that from the get-go. So I already knew Amanda was going to be behind whatever decision was going to come, right, wrong, or indifferent. I publicly announced my resignation on the 7th. That night, the town council didn't accept it. Shortly thereafter, the outcry from the community, right, go figure, doing the right thing got the community to rise. And a lot of pressure came for the politicians on the other side of the table. The town manager shortly submitted his letter of resignation on the heels of mine. And I had a member of the council come. I live on a 25-acre farm, right? And we can talk about alternative methods of healing from trauma, the rape of the soul. Being on a farm and 5 children is something that helps me. But anyway, sorry about the tangent. He came to the farm and he said, don't submit your letter of resignation. In my hand, in his cell phone, I have the town manager's resignation. The lower self of me, right, my lower self, my ego, said yes, right? I'm scared of life after the fire service. This is what I know, the devil I know. I'm coming back. My bride standing right next to me. Are you going to give him the money he needs that the taxpayers said and demanded, gave that mandate that we keep hearing about the American people giving to Donald Trump, that mandate? It happened in the town of Londonderry at 70% of the vote. 70% said we want 4 guys added across the fire. So that's something for me to stand on. Amanda says, because she's thinking, she's looking up and out, I'm down and in my emotions, and Amanda says, are you going to give him the money so that he can staff at 13? We're going to have to take care of that next year. You don't know who my husband is. He just told, if he does that, if he goes back, what does that do to my message? I just planted a flag. To then go back and acquiesce my position as a man and as a father, I can't stand for that. I won't stand for it because my firefighters deserve better. The community also deserves better. So that was a question that I was faced with. Should I go back because it's easy, because it's what I know? And it was my wife, most important person in my life, that said, you can't do that, Bo. That will totally negate everything that you just stood for. And it's like, I talked about this on our podcast with Reagan. I think, right, not college educated, just a guy that has fucked up and failed probably more than anybody. And through those failures, but through those failures you learn, right? The easy way or the hard way, I learned the hard way. But one of the things I was lucky enough to learn the easy way was who I was going to spend the rest of my life with. The person you marry is probably one of the most important decisions that, at least my observation and opinion, that you can make. Because she's behind me 110%. If it wasn't her and it was someone else, I was making, and it's public record, I was making just under $140,000 a year. I got 5 kids. You know, I live on a farm. There's a lot at stake here. So the dad side of me, the, you know, man of the household side of me is like, I got to keep making an income. I'm coming back. But it was my wife who put all the financial stuff aside to say, this is the man I love. I love him because of the stand and the way his character is. Bo, you can't do that. And so we made that decision, if that answers your question.
It does. And something, this is not completely off topic, but and you wouldn't be able to make those type of decisions if you didn't live like a responsible man and were in a financial position to be able to make those. So the way you live your life, who you marry, how you spend your money on the good times, preparing yourself for the bad times, sets you up to be able to make the right decisions that some people want to, but they paint themselves in a corner because they can't, because they didn't live their life in a way that allows them to do the right thing.
Yep.
Amen.
It was, I took my guys, I secured a grant for mental health. I was 1 for 1 in my grant writing, so I got 100% track record.
We'll just say 100%. We'll just 100%. We don't say 1 for 1.
You're the guy we need to see.
So I secured this grant for $10,000.
Grants or copy and paste.
Oh, no, I got creative on this one. I will. No, go ahead.
ChatGPT?
No way. There's no soul in that. There's no soul in that. So I secured a grant for $10K, and it was for mental health. And I took as many guys on the fire department that could get the time off down to Gettysburg. And we did a battlefield review, a staff ride. Now, it was really a leadership journey, right? So you go down to Gettysburg and you learn about leadership that was effective, leadership that was ineffective. And you study each stand. And we tie in the challenges on the battlefield for what we're facing now as leaders in the fire service. But more than that, it was a mental health journey. Veterans, at least me, I can't go back to Iraq right now where I, lost the innocence of my youth and touched my hand on a monument dedicated to my brothers. I can't do that yet. So we were able to go to Gettysburg, a lot of us, feel the energy of that sacred battlefield, feel what it means to walk on that field where Americans were fighting and killing Americans, brother versus brother, feel the energy. And at one of the stands, we were talking about a hill to die on. And with my people there, I said exactly what I said here tonight, that there might come a time where I am not going to do something that's going to hurt you guys. I'm not going to do something that is going to put you in a position where you're doing more with less as firefighters. And let's face it, on the job, the easiest day is hard enough. The easiest day on the job is hard enough. And I told them there may come a time where I got to plant my flag. And it was a very special thing to be able to do that. But I feel as a man, all you have is your word in life. And once you go against that bell is rung, you never get that back. You never get it back. So living a life of integrity is fucking hard.
Scarface says, all you have in this life is your word and your balls. You don't break them from anybody.
That's right.
Hey, we had a super chat come in, but it went away. Oh, there it is. Somebody just wanted to tell you, give that chief a round of applause. Man's man, a chief's, and a fireman's fireman. So.
Oh yeah.
Perfect.
Oh yeah. I want to bring up Dr. Natanya. Why don't you come up here? She's a mental health specialist. I think you two will really connect.
Well,
right
I have a quick
I
question.
do want to say this, though, real quick. I don't want people to think that I was this perfect and failable fire chief. I'm not. I made a lot of mistakes. I fucked up along the way. And there's a part of me that feels like I abandoned my own people. That's something I now have to struggle with. It's hard. It's hard for me to explain, but there's a part of me that says I quit and walked away from the people that I loved, and I can't put words to it. I'm sorry, I can't.
Well, the easiest way to do it is explain to everybody the love between a fireman and another fireman. Now, you don't have to get graphic if you don't want to.
Whoa.
You do play with each other's hoses.
You can tell it's about half firemen in this room because it was about.
We'll show you. Firemen invented sex. Cops introduced it to women.
Oh, zing!
Yeah.
That's where the KY came in from.
Nick, who do we have up here?
Dr. Natanya Watchell, right?
Hi, guys. Thank you for having me up here. Thank Thank you all for what you do. I'm so glad that some of us just met today, some of us have met before. I heard all about you earlier. I think there's so many layers. That's really, really awesome to hear. You know, obviously you're all in the business of physically protecting so many people, right? And then you have to protect it with the way you show up. So when you come, you can't be like, oh no, that looks terrible, right? So you have to have this armor on your physical person and your mental state, right? All the time for strangers who might not appreciate anything that you do for them. And I have a history of working with the military and PTSD, and I started noticing a lot of similarities in other service organizations with, you know, the challenge that you spoke about so beautifully. And I just want to just thank you for kind of weaving that into your story, because I think that's the thing that has been really interesting lately is it's okay to admit some vulnerability. It's okay to kind of be like, that wasn't okay. And the fact that you guys are calling out people who are doing those things where it used to be sort of two-dimensional how it was, right? And then the other thing is then you have to go do car line or something after a fire or, a deployment, and then just be like standing in a line for a Target while people are screaming. And
There's nothing more infuriating than a child's car line at school. So I was there.
I picked that one, and just
My
to
wife
say,
knows a lot
like,
about that.
I mean, many of us want to kind of.
Well, all right, so can we have some healthy conversation about?
Yeah, so
all right.
so I'm open to say whatever and just say, I'm not an expert in your world, but I've listened to so many stories and I was like, this has to be told.
Yeah,
People
and I
have to
think
hear this.
just one thing that I think that our podcast we touched up, we haven't really touched about it like once.
Mental health or PTSD, like that?
No, it's men being vulnerable. And so I'm not going to speak for Brent because he actually had a good. But there was a guest speaker once. We were at a convention. We were doing merch sales and stuff, and he was like, his claim to fame was men need to be vulnerable. And I remember standing next to Brent. And he's like, that's bullshit. So just get your take on.
All right. Listen, that's a generic thing, right? Like maybe not every day, everywhere, but once in a while, it's actually pretty. Can I say it's like. It's pretty sexy, right? It's actually for women.
I think some girls, but I feel like some women would be like, at some times in a dire straits, a woman needs to be there. But I'm talking like a death or something like what you went through, but maybe like a 10-minute thing. And then I really feel like if a woman has a guy just crying about life all the time and going, baby, I'm coming to you because I love you, it might be a turnoff for some women because it's like, damn, you're supposed to hold this fucking household together and you're over here fucking crying about everything.
Right.
And we want this to be a conversation, so just, don't think by any means this is just, hey, this is our opinion.
I'm not crying.
I think it's important to also say, like, what do we mean about vulnerable? So when I say it, I don't mean necessarily crying all the time. I just mean just putting your hand up and being like, whoa, that was rough, or that was too much, or I don't want to do that again, or actually, like we said about when you see someone else in your, whether they're in your precinct or in your squad or whatever, we're talking about a lot of different groups here, but, in your crew, being sensitive to seeing that they're struggling. And then, like, being like, hey, man, are you all right? Like, that kind of stuff. So
you have clearly never been in a room full of alpha males before.
Oh, no, I have. You know what I do? I take them roller skating. I take them to laser tag and roller skating, and we all get, you start to feel a little stupid like a kid, and then all of a sudden, the little bit of the armor comes down. And
I have never taken my armor down in a room like this, ever. No one ever is going to see me vulnerable.
Oh, just wait. Just wait.
Doctor, I have a serious question for you, which is this. In the last, you'd have to put a pin in to decide when it was, 5 years, however long it's been, there has been more focus on mental health and PTSD than ever before. And whatever number you want to put to that, 5, 6, 7 years. Yet, I would argue we've been, since most focus, we've been the most unhealthy for mental health and PTSD. How is that? How can we be more aware of it than ever and be more unhealthy than ever? And what's your opinion on that or take on it?
Thank you for asking. Actually,
Yeah.
Reagan and I spoke about this a couple hours ago. I want to be really clear. This is my personal opinion. I am.
Don't worry, I got one too.
Yeah. I think there's a couple layers to it. So to keep it short and sweet, I'll say there's some simple things that have changed fundamentally in our society in terms of how we interact with each other, right? Just on a daily basis. How technology has given us a false sense sometimes of connection, but we sometimes don't have that. So especially younger people, right? So they don't actually have conversations where they look someone in the face or have a response and like a rhythm with a relationship of another human being. The fact that you sort of said it really subtly, Bo, but about being on the farm with your 5 kids, and I heard you. And I pick it up, yeah. I know, I look like a blonde cheerleader, but I'm actually studying everybody. And that's really profound, actually. And I get that there's a lot of layers to that. And I want to say that because what he's talking about is when you touch the soil, when you think about what you put in your mouth, and we don't eat meals together, like basic things about society. We don't have an interdependence like we used to when, I could go back to feudal times, but it's been rapidly accelerated through COVID because of people being spread apart, working remotely. Like, I'm not saying we all should go to offices and all these things, but I think a lot of factors that have eroded the basics of like hanging out and being together with people, and that kind of we need that. That's part of what makes us human beings. Being interconnected, being collaborative, telling people like, hey, your joke wasn't really funny, but whatever, like it's rivalry, whatever it is. And so then we become this like robotic version going through the motions of our days and mostly irritated about all the things that aren't working. And everyone, you can see it. You can see it when people are shooting each other over their coffee order being wrong or changing a lane or a parking spot. I mean, think about how absurd that is, but also what kind of rage that is on a daily basis, just doing your daily tasks. And that builds up, and then the other thing is the stress, the parasympathetic nervous system and sympathetic nervous system, meaning like we're always in fight or flight. So you're kind of like, even civilians, or, just people who don't really have jobs like yours, are also at the ready to like aggressively fight or flee. And that doesn't make for bonding. That doesn't make for dealing with a stressful situation in a way where you maneuver it. And ultimately that builds up. And unfortunately, it builds up in our cells, it builds up in our brain function, and we kind of almost forget that we're supposed to kind of like each other, and all of us, as different as we may be, can actually probably learn from each other or support one another in a different way. Like, maybe you're gonna break the door down for me and I'll do your taxes, whatever. I don't know, but you know what I mean? Like.
Yeah, what do you feel about this? I could propose this. I think I have a solution.
Okay.
One night a year, from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., all crime is legal.
I thought I'd go the other way with
And
it.
then
What if
the other
I would say
364
maybe
days,
more,
we can all love each other.
I would say, what about more love? Like you said, Bo, a little more love.
One night a year, all crime is legal?
One night a year, all love is legal.
But yeah, BLM does that 7 times a year. What are you talking about?
We're in Philadelphia right now.
Too soon? What?
I'm just saying,
Go
like,
down that road, all crime is legal.
But Doc, I think I think one of the things to be vulnerable, and I'll do that because I think in a leadership position, if you're vulnerable, you're going to solicit the same people that have the same questions to step forward. So I want to ask you this question. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Personally, I got a problem with it being a disorder. And I think this is where in our community we lose our way, because for me, and this is my observations, you can disagree with me, how do you tell me I have a disorder for experiencing the absolute, like the passion of life to its absolute top? To be intimately around death, to do CPR on infants whose parents rolled over on them that they were co-sleeping together, and I feel fucking sad and I'm hurting, and then I'm told that it's a disorder. So I go, why is it a disorder for me to have what I think is a normal human reaction to something very abnormal, that human beings aren't always around like this. And it's a disorder. So I go like this. Wouldn't the real disorder be for me if I didn't feel shitty after working a code or, being there when a kid that I coached in football is suffocating under a car because it rolled over? Wouldn't that truly be the disorder? Because then I think it would mean I didn't have a soul and a spirit.
If you don't mind, can I take this one? I'm not a doctor, but I'm a subject matter expert on this via experience, and that's kind of a tongue-in-cheek, but I don't. It's funny you say that. We've had this conversation on the podcast before, and it seems like a insignificant, but words have meanings. Yeah. I would like to call it PTSI, post-traumatic stress injury. Because once you call something a disorder, you have something for the rest of your life.
Yeah, you can't
and
heal
to me, to tell someone, hey, you went to war, you saw something bad, you're messed up for the rest of your life, you were a firefighter, saw something bad, you'll have to deal with this for the rest of your life. If you tell someone that, that's exactly what they'll do. Like, people are they can be manipulated. If you tell them this is what's going to happen, they believe that. I believe 100% it's more of an injury, a mental injury, and like any injury, the closest time frame to the injury is the worst. So I just lost a teammate. We went to a funeral today.
I'm sorry, brother.
And that's life. And you know what? I'm grieving about it, and it's the worst that it should be right now, like any injury. But like any injury, if time doesn't go on and you don't get better about it, something is actually wrong, not right. So I'd like to just kind of, challenge, academia about their thought and what they call it and their designator and how they deal with it, and that's my 2 cents on it.
No, absolutely, I would agree with you on every front. And I also want to be clear, I'm not currently licensed or practicing, partly because I left that clinical structured world, actually to get into the world of brain injury and psychedelics and looking at how we can rewire and relearn things, because I found there was more healing there, and that the labels are dumb, and maybe I'm not supposed to say that, but I agree with you, absolutely. And I think it's the same thing, like the way even when we talk about it in diabetes, a diabetic, or I have this versus I am this label. The point is more that as a country, as a society, we were asking people to risk their lives. Well, I'm sorry. Civilians are asking others, like you all, heroes, to risk your lives for us, and we don't give you salary to live on. We don't give you support. Like, it's wrong.
Well, one of the things that we brought up last time, one of our new sponsors is a CBD/THC company, and it's funny that we're moving in the way of medicine to even where doctors are looking at psychedelics. We've had a guest on, Kurt. He's not a doctor, but he's a human performance specialist with SOF and all that stuff. And he's now vouching like psychedelics is where it's at. It's what heals you. But when you work for the government, you can't even fucking take CBD for joints and go to sleep. You just can't. And I understand why. It's because what someone will do is they'll go smoke weed, they'll pop pot on a test, and then they'll go, oh, I took CBD that wasn't tested, right? So the government's just gonna go, okay, you know what? No CBD. How about that? Yep. And it's just crazy, but we can't even get CBD. That's not even a drug. And modern medicine's moving all the way to psychedelics, yet the government world is still sitting and trying to get like joint medication.
Yeah, and then, sorry, I'm gonna say it, alcohol is poison, and that's okay. And
no, it's not a good.
But I just mean in terms of healing, it is the tools in the toolbox. We're not allowed to use them all, and that's unfortunate. But also going back to what you were saying about PTSD. So I didn't coin the term, and it's just the vernacular that we have. But I really appreciate you saying that, because it sort of becomes a stigma in and of itself.
Absolutely.
And all I'm hoping for is more kinds of conversations in different kinds of places, so the people who make those decisions hear your stories.
For just for the sake of of argument, I'll challenge what you said. It's not just a stigma, although it is. There's always that negative stigma of it. I'll go as far to say some people view it as a stigma, and some wear it as a badge of honor. And I know that sounds weird,
No.
but coming from the military, let me tell you, if you don't have PTSD,
Did you even do
You
anything?
haven't seen
did
shit.
you even go to
You
war?
haven't seen enough
And something
shit.
tells me that's not just the military. If you're a firefighter and you don't have PTSD, have you ever saved anyone? And something tells me that goes across the board.
Yeah.
And that alone is that's a toxic culture
Well,
right there.
look at cop work. Is there anybody here? Sal, don't raise your hand. Is there anybody here that shot someone in the line of duty? Okay.
Yes. Or no. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying right there. Like, there's times when I'm at work, like, I can't say it because we're live on YouTube, but you get that. Like, guys that have killed someone in the line of duty are almost like more well respected. Like, he's a cop. He's a guy's guy. Like, he blasted. He's not afraid to do it. He stepped up and he did what he had to do. And so you're almost like not a free pass, but you're almost like a made man in your agency that you work for. Like, oh yeah, dude, you've heard it. He shot like 7 people. He's a fucking legend, you know? But in all reality, that guy's probably going home at the end of the night like, fuck, you know, like having to relive every single stressful where he had to take a life. Well, let's just say he's not stressed about that. He probably almost fucking died. He just happened to win the gunfight.
All right, so there's 2 things. One is somehow, some way, we've got to stop this culture of having PTSD is a good thing. And I won't get on this soapbox, but I'll go down that road. There's people that think having ADD is a good thing. You know, there's like,
Hell yeah, they
like,
give you
like
good medicine
everything
for
is
that
like,
shit,
if
man.
you don't have something wrong with you, then what's wrong with you? You know, and that's a whole nother podcast.
I want to know why he's not a convicted felon, this motherfucker shooting people.
But Bo,
The fuck? You
Bo,
got away with it?
You said it earlier, and that's exactly.
That's cool.
I want to dovetail on it, and I agree with you. Here's the problem I have with people having PTSD in a world of violent or just extreme profession is this. You're a firefighter with PTSD because you saw a kid in a car crash. What'd you think you were gonna see? Did no one ever tell you that you raised your hand to save someone's life? What do you think you're gonna see to save someone's life? Carnage. And I don't want to go too far in yours because that's for you to talk about. So I'm gonna go back to the military. Oh, I saw someone die in combat and I have PTSD. What did you think combat was? People die. So if you have I'm gonna go a step too far, and people can say whatever they want to me, and that's fine. I can take it. So if you have PTSD because you saw someone die in combat and you weren't expecting that, you're an idiot. I'll say it. You know what I mean? And that's not excusing everyone. There's no such thing as PTSD. Is what I'm saying. But someone has to stop the craziness, and someone has to say something.
It takes leadership. When I got on the fire department, I had that experience of war, so I kind of knew a thing or two about it. But because it's so hard to talk about, human nature is to avoid it altogether. And as a leader, when you feel something that you want to avoid, that's the cue. That's your internal cue to lean into it and talk about it. So for me, as fire chief, I never gave a fuck about the color of my shirt. I didn't care about how many bugles were on my helmet. I cared mostly about the influence the position comes to do good for other human beings. So for my new hires, and I had a command climate as such that people would come to me and say, you know, Bo, it was never chief. This is what's so special about this. Hey, Bo, I know you want us to have the message with the new hires that are just starting out, that have no experience to fall back on, but it will mean more coming from you than me, because I'm trying to develop leaders. So I'm trying other people to have that conversation. So you listen to your people, and you stand in front of the new hires before they even start a shift on the fire department, and you tell them, this job is going to fucking take everything from you. Conversely, it's going to give you everything. You are going to be experienced with trauma, death, but if you can take that obstacle, right, that problem and flip it up on its head, the obstacle is the way. When you're so intimate with death and you know with eyes and a heart wide open that you're coming into a service where you're going to be exposed to this stuff, it sets an expectation that it's going to happen. It's not a surprise when it does. But the message when they're brand new is that you are an enlightened human being when you deal with trauma, because you know how bad it is, therefore you know how beautiful it is, right? Everything for me, and it took a long time to get here, everything for me is so beautiful. Everything. because I know how dark it can get. So let's use that. Let's use that to enlighten our soul, enlighten the outlook on our life. It's hard to do, right? It's very hard to do. I remember I came home and it was, drink your problems away. That was how we dealt with it. And so I tried. I tried to do that, but what I found, and this is why I don't drink, when I'm drinking, I'm not present. Every day is so hard. Every day I'm hurting. We're human beings. To live is to suffer. It's an active suffering process. Every day is hard. And then I found, as I'm listening to these giants that came before me, drink it away, so I'm drinking. And now,
that's buffed energy. That's not alcohol.
That's true.
For our sponsor, who's sitting over here, we're going to hear a word from him in a minute, but that is not alcohol.
But for me, when I would drink, my guard would come down, and I wasn't able to fight all the pain that I was experiencing. And Jordan Peterson says it all the time: don't add to your suffering. You got to hit the kill switch. If you're hurting, hit the kill switch. And I would tell my people, when you get stuck and you don't know what to do, you had a bad shift, your bucket's pouring out with all the bullshit you just got exposed to. If you just love one thing, no matter what it is, and you put love into it, find where it takes you. Find where the love of one thing, whether it's hugging your wife more or being more present with your kids, and you start to find your way, that path comes back to you. So it's important to set that example right from the get-go that you're going to be exposed to it. Absolutely, 100%.
There's a couple things I want to touch on that I really like that you said. One thing, special operations generally has the lowest rate of PTSD, yet sees the most action. And people always want to know, like, how is that so? It kind of doesn't make sense right off the bat. My answer to that is training. And the training says, in training all the time, they mentally prepare you and say, you're going to see this is going to happen, you're going to carry your dead buddy to the helicopter, this is going to happen, and it's always told to you in training. And then when you see it, I remember the first time I saw it, and carried my dead teammate to a helicopter. The first thing I remember thinking to myself was, this is exactly what they told me I was going to do. And I was mentally prepared for it. So having a senior tell you, these are the bad things that you're going to see, be prepared for it, but more importantly, I've seen it, and you can see this and you can be okay.
That's right.
But if you're not, because everyone is different, you can talk to me. But I say it over and over again. If you tell someone all the time you're going to see something bad, and when you do, you will be a broken man and you will have PTSD, guess what? That's what he's going to do, because you just told him that. Yes, but it doesn't have to be that way.
That's right. And you tell the new guys coming in that, here's the deal, right? We learn the hard way. How many times in my heart, never mind the head, in my heart and my soul, one of the guys that I serve with, who I thought something was wrong, and I should have fucking asked him, are you okay, brother? But no, we don't want to have that tough conversation. We want to avoid it. We don't want to lean into it. He gets too far off the reservation, and then he kills himself. But there were pre-incident indicators, right? Why didn't we ask? Why didn't I say, brother,
right.
You okay?
Your teammates know. Your closest of kin know. Your closest teammates know.
100%. And so with these new guys coming in, we tell them, look, if you're hurting, my commitment to you and everybody else, every other leader, every other peer, is that if we think something is off, another human being is going to come to you and give you that, brother, are you okay? And if you're not, you be forthcoming. We'll figure it out. We'll work through it. We'll get through the fire of life together.
And this is in the fire department?
Fire department.
See, we can't do that in the police department.
Why?
It's a stigma. If they find out that, you go to EAD for help, you have PTSD.
Yeah,
you're
first
gonna be
it's
on
like,
the
let
shelf.
me get that gun. All right.
You're done, man.
Now that you're on light duty, until further notice, tell us about your problems. And as a cop, you're like, damn, now you're taking report calls for dumb shit while your boys are out there getting bad guys. And then you're going to say whatever it is, just like the civilians. Yeah, like when we take a civilian in for an involuntary check-in, right, against their will, they're in custody for their own well-being. All they have to do is tell a doctor, I'm fine. I don't know why this cop took me in. The doctor's got so many more fucking patients to deal with. If they don't go, yeah, doc, I'm fucked up, they're just going to go, okay, you're out, bye. So, and it's, and to be fair, in the comments section, there's a lot of people saying, like, I don't want my cops on psychedelics. That's fair. Also, I probably don't want my cops struggling with mental issues. So maybe the answer is like acute trauma, constantly like dealing with it in a good way, as opposed to maybe, because if it does lead up to one thing, it might be where that cop doesn't need to be out there currently at the moment. But I think what you're saying is that like 99% of the people out there that maybe want to go to therapy or something, they don't need to have their gun taken away. Right. They just need to have therapy and talk.
But Tyler, we've had this conversation, and I might word it wrong for right here, but who's your best psychologist? Who knows you best? Who should give you the best information? Who's your best psychologist?
Me.
That's right. Your teammates, you, your wife, your teammates, they know you the best. And I'm not sitting here saying, the mental health professionals are useless. The problem I have is this, is that so fast in this society, we're so quick to say, oh, and we just said this and agreed with it. The teammates know someone has a problem quicker than anyone else. And then we go, hey, you should go see a mental health professional. That's the wrong answer. How about and the answer to that is this. I don't want you to be my problem, and I don't have time to deal with you. You go deal with someone else. Take the time out of your life, deal with this guy at the lowest level, and maybe we can get it solved here. And when I say the lowest level, not just the lowest, the best, because whatever he's dealing with, you know as a teammate more than anyone else exactly what he's dealing with. The health professionals, they're great, at an academic level, but they never pulled a dead kid out of a car. They never put a dead teammate onto a helicopter. So although they are academically maybe the best, that doesn't mean they can exactly correlate with you. So let's do that first, and that type of help isn't going to get you pulled from your job. So let's do that first. And if I can't help you, then let's send you up. Then let's send you to the next level. Can we agree with that?
That's why the best time in the firehouse is at shift change. It's ball busting time. 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. You're eating breakfast, ripping coffee, talking with the boys. 3 o'clock they come back in. The ball busting is where it happens. That's where you break it down. You're 100% right. Your guys on your shift know you the best. And at that point, when you're breaking balls, it's like, yeah, that guy seems off. All right, let's do a fishing trip. Let's do a shift something. But without that time in the morning and the evening, like, I would not survive. I know that for a fact. Sitting around the kitchen table, even if you're picking on the new guy, hey, you feel better about yourself. But you know what? You got some stuff off your chest, and he needs to be able to handle it, because I think that stuff there prepares you when you are, going in and pulling kids out, and you see dead bodies and carnage and everything else. Like, that's where it happens. You got your balls busted. You're ready for this, So I don't know. That's what worked for us anyway.
Hey, can you introduce yourself real quick?
Oh, yeah, sure. Hey, everybody. I'm Ian with Buffed Energy, Brotherhood Buffs. But I was a fireman for the city of Baltimore for about 14 years, a little over 14 years. Worked pretty much everywhere you see the wire, the heart of West Baltimore for the better part of my career.
Great show.
It's all true. We were, during the riots, the CVS that was on fire was 6 blocks from our firehouse. So spent a lot of time in the good parts of the city. But I was able to quit through real estate. We've talked a lot about a lot of this stuff, on the outside looking in. It's like, God damn, we beat our boys up. But that's what we did. I was a fireman and enjoyed it. And now we have this energy drink and looking to support first responders. So excited for that.
Awesome. Where can people get Buff? Is it in stores yet? And if it's not, where can they get it?
As of right now, it's on officialbuffedenergy.com. We completely sold out in 5 weeks of our first production run. The support's been absolutely amazing. So you can go to officialbuffedenergy.com and check out. I think we have pre-orders up, right, Sean? Because we're pretty much all the way sold out. And
is it by the case?
Yeah, by the case, or you can do 6-packs or 12-packs.
Okay.
So.
And look, I'm drinking this shit. It's good. It's actually good. I thought, to be honest with you, when I drank it, I was like, this is just going to taste like another fucking energy drink. But it is good. And that goes to show, too, man, firefighters, one guy goes, hey, I need more work. He goes and starts cutting hair. Every single firefighter is going to go get his hair cut by that guy because they're not toxic and they're supportive of their brothers. Cops, on the other hand,
Their own worst
I'm going to call
enemy.
in and get a complaint, get that guy shut down because he's a shitbag. You know, so go support Buffed Energy. They sponsored this whole thing. They
Yes.
paid for all of it. So
Great stuff. Thank you.
buy a couple cases.
Hey, one thing about the product, to be clear, is like we went to our formulator and said, hey man, we want to make something that like you had a horrible night at work, you got to go hang out with your family, you want to be present, you want to have the mental clarity, you want to have energy. You know, it would have been easy to go make another sugary drunk drink because firemen will literally buy anything, but we wanted something that was actually legitimate. So we have caffeine and theanine that's paired properly so you don't crash. We have CoQ10 for mental clarity. We have blueberry extract in there. We have minerals. And we made it as healthy as we could without tasting horrible. So it's kind of rides that border, but there's no sugar, 10 calories, and enjoy it. I think there's still some free samples over there at Sean. And
It's good.
thanks, everyone.
Thank you, brother.
So, Tyler, in the chat, she said, we don't want our cops taking psychedelics. Is that what he said?
Yeah. Some people were, they're common.
See, that's the stigma that comes with this medicine, plant-based medicine. It's not dropping acid and tripping balls. You know, a lot of people are on ibogaine, which is like one treatment, and it's something that you can't really abuse because the cycle of it is terrible. It's horrible. And it's something that people are only really taking one time, and the results are amazing. So, you know, the stigma behind the psychedelics, the psilocybin, is something that, you know, I would like to see combat it, and people really need to take some time and look into it. You know, it's not dropping acid and having a good time with your boys at Grateful Dead concert. It's actually medicine. It's helping people. It's rewiring people's brains, and it's doing things that conventional medicine can't do.
Well, and but the whole point of this here is to, we're all either cops or holy fuck, that thing is impressive. That was the size of like 2 Applebee's put together. And, and they had bartenders, waiters, like they had event halls.
Is that where the after party is?
I wish. But like it's shit like that. Like it's the unions. Now down south in Florida where we're from, unions have no power. It's not like up here in the north. Unions still have some fucking pull. Down south, if a sheriff says I want to fire that guy, and all right, yeah, you can sue him later. It'll take 2 years. You'll get 2 years salary. That's fine. But he'll fire you. Up here in the north, a chief goes, I want to fire him. Like the union's like, go suck our dicks. You're not gonna just fire somebody like that, and you can get your job back.
It's tough.
It took them 5 years to get me.
So I mean, like it takes people like the FOP vice president. What's his name? Joe Guatemala.
I don't know.
We met him at street cop training.
Oh,
He's a firecracker of a dude, and
The national FOP?
yes,
Oh,
vice president.
All jacked up. Yeah. I know.
The vice president. He's a young guy. And it takes shit like that. Like the unions have to step up and go, and cops in general have to go, listen, we need for our mental health, and just not cops, first responders in general. We work for the government. Yes, I get it. But the things that people that work for the government, whether it be war fighting, police officers, EMS, fire, you go and look at and see and do the things voluntarily that the rest of society chooses to believe doesn't exist. So the car accident, how many times, in civilian life, and I do it too because I'm not trying to get jammed up, but, you drive by and you're like, that looks like a really shitty accident, but there's first responders dealing with that accident, and they're going to deal with it every single day. Guys that have gone to war are going to come home, and as loving as people are to our veterans today, as opposed to like the Vietnam era, they just don't understand. I mean, I'm a firm believer, Brent, I love you, but the more time you spend being a warfighter, the harder it is for you to kind of like in social environments, you have to how long since you've been retired, have you noticed that it's taken a long time for you to like come into a setting like this and just be like cool?
This is going to sound unhumble, but the truth is I've never had an issue reintegrating. But this is just me and my mind thought, and so it doesn't mean that I put my standards on everyone else. I've never came home after a deployment and thought every piece of trash on the side of the road was going to blow up because it was an IED. But that's just me. I've never driven under an overpass and said, "Oh, there might be an ambush on that overpass." That's just me. So I've never had that issue, but which at the end of the day, it doesn't make me on this high horse because I don't think very highly of myself, to be honest with you. And if I can do it, I know it's possible that anyone could do it, but it doesn't make me think less of anyone who can't. Which I know probably took a little steam out of
Yeah,
the
you
question.
fucking killed it, Brent. Thanks. But I mean, I noticed, like, just people that have seen things like that. It's the cliche, like, when you get to, like, me and you are at a party, right? Our wives are at a work party. We just happen to be the husbands. And I'm like, "Oh, you're a firefighter? We're gonna end up going to the corner and talking about our culture to where other people just can't understand it." And you don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be the guy that's like, "Bro, I saw this fucking decapitated dude in this car accident," because it's just gonna kill the mood. But I feel like no matter what medication, no matter what we try, no matter what, you are choosing to do that life, and you are always going to be a little bit different because you are choosing to look at and see and experience things and you're taking that burden off the rest of society. You're saying I'm gonna sound cheesy as fuck. You're saying send me, right? And then when you say send me, and then they send you, you're gonna see all that shit, so the rest of people can't see it.
Yeah. But
It's fun though.
It is fun. That's a really good point.
That's
You
what you should
signed
tell
up.
them. That's what you should tell
Let me
them.
tell you
It's fun.
something. I loved every fucking day.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
loved it.
Yeah,
I saw death, despair. I robbed people. I didn't give a. I loved it. I didn't want a 3-day swing to come. I'm like, fuck. I'm gonna miss shit.
The adrenaline was just not enough for you.
Great. It was great.
Tyler, on your point, you said people don't want to see cops on psychedelics, is what you said, right?
Well, I didn't say it. The comments.
Well, the comments.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Someone. That's what you said, that via the comment section.
Yeah.
So if that's not an option to us, what is a legal coping mechanism?
Sex.
Yeah.
What is
I get what you're throwing out. I get what you're
What
throwing
is
out.
a legal coping mechanism? Alcohol.
Yep.
Alcohol is a legal coping mechanism.
And,
Wait a
And let me
minute,
tell you
wait a
what
minute,
we
wait a
don't
minute.
want: a bunch of functioning alcoholics as your first responders and veterans. But that's what we have. Go ahead, doctor.
You can just call me Natanya, but I heard that
Doctor.
little comment about
Dr. Natanya.
I don't want my-
You earned it. You
I
earned
don't
it.
want,
You'll get
I
doctor.
don't want cops on psychedelics. I was like, come on. Well, that was a very silly comment because do you want them drunk? Do you want them high? Like we're talking about clinical treatment that is
Right.
legal with a medical professional to help rewire your brain. If you should happen to want that or need that, it just should be available to you. That's all we're trying to say, not go out on the beat and be, because you can be very affected. You could be so stressed out in a rage and be not really the best to show up and be a hero either, right? So it's a silly kind of statement to say. It's not for us to say, I think. That's the point, right? Like what works for you works for you. I don't think it has to be a therapist. I don't think it has to be a psychiatrist that you seek to get help. I really like what you said about who knows you the best and who can help buoy you, and really you can feel trust to tell them your real shit.
Right.
Absolutely. But
Be vulnerable.
and be vulnerable.
All right, so
Yeah, but come on, just obviously we're talking about responsible, careful, appropriate use
right.
of these treatments.
all right, I've never gone through anything. I've never been in a shooting as a cop. So as much as I try and speak on it, because I do have a voice in this platform, we've had people on that have been, we've had guests on that have been in like 5, 6, 7 shootings, and that's just, I don't know.
Every weekend. They have a shooting a weekend. These
Yeah,
motherfuckers.
but-
Lucky.
I did 10 years in East New York, the most
Have
dangerous
you ever been in a
place,
shooting?
The most dangerous place in the world. I fired a refrigerator once. I said, that thing will never move again. I mean, come on. The fuck? These guys, some guys, like, that's what they do.
Yeah.
Like, they find shootings. I mean,
Or that, or
for real.
St. Michael's
I mean,
go.
Some
send
guys
him,
find them.
Send that
you know?
guy. He's the angel of death.
Some guys, you got to stay away from them.
But we do have somebody
Crazy.
that was here on episode 89 of the Anti-Hero Podcast. He was not on the episode. However, his mom and dad came on to talk about with something that he went through. So, Sal, will you come up here? So there's a lot, about 90% we're not going to be able to talk about, but Sal went through something that was traumatic for anybody, and one of those things, I always say this about being a cop too, you make fun of cops all you want, but 1 second you're talking with your zone partner about what you're going to eat for dinner, and then within a 2-minute time, if you could fast forward, you could be in a shooting, and it's like that. The tone goes out, you're like, shit, I'm like right around the corner, and then that shit happens. So, Sal, you were, and if I ask you anything that you don't want to answer because it's live on YouTube, just say, not going to talk about that, can't talk about that. But just what you went through, are you allowed to talk about that? Just the scene itself? Like,
I can't talk to anything about the incident or what occurred, but I could talk about like what my current status is and what I went through, like mentally, physically, what happened after the
okay,
fact.
so vaguely, you were in a shooting.
Involved in a critical incident, yep.
Okay, which is it turned into that.
Yeah.
Critical incident.
And basically after that, I was cleared. I went back to work a month later. I was back to work 2 years. I was promoted to an art agency. I was promoted to a corporal. Got Officer of the Year for a second time. Was living life. I was getting ready to get married. Found out my wife was pregnant, and then I was indicted 2 years later with second-degree reckless manslaughter after I was cleared and went back to work. It's been a struggle on and off with mental health and just financially. It's just been a big thing, but I've been striving, pushing forward. My wife, my daughter is what keeps me moving every day, and it's the biggest thing for me.
So we can comment on it, right? So for the audience out there who haven't seen it, for the audience that hasn't seen the shooting, it's actually like a textbook shooting if you wanted to be in one, for a police department. If you're doing a training video, you would show this shooting, and you would look at it, and there's not a damn thing wrong with it. Bad guy pointed a gun at cops. Cops shot the bad guy. I mean, it's textbook. As you can see, he was put back to work. Officer of the Year.
Back in the day, you would have been at lunch and handling calls 2 hours later.
Yeah.
It was pretty textbook.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that cut and dry. You really don't get that more cut and dry than what happened. He's one of the better cops in New Jersey right now. His old partner's out here right now. Where you at? Could you stand up? So, Sal is a very humble person. He's a really good kid. Sal, I believe, saved your life, correct? Right? You were a victim of a shooting. You were bleeding out. Shot in the right leg. And Sal applied a tourniquet, saved your life, rushed you to the hospital, right? That second. Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of cop Sal is. Well, it's a new police department. So this is the guy you want in your police department. He was the trainer of the police department, Officer of the Year, saving lives, and you have a piece of shit Attorney General Placken, a Soros-backed scumbag, comes
Allegedly.
in, trying to make a name.
This is
for
not coming
himself.
from Sal.
No, it's all coming from me. Placken's a piece of shit. He's Soros-backed, and he's trying to make a name for himself, and he's doing it on the backs of cops like Sal. And I've had other police officers from Jersey reach out to me, I'm sure you have too, Tyler, that are going through the same thing. He's digging up old cases because they hate the police. That's what they do. So I really, you can check out Sal's episode on the Good Cop, Bad Cop, or Anti-Hero. They also did a podcast, and it breaks down the
Episode
video,
89.
breaks it down really well. Yeah, he can't talk about it. His parents can, we can. Placken's a piece of shit.
But all right, but afterwards, it's just not it's not just the psychological shit that you go through, but it's like you said, when this happened, all of a sudden now your pay's gone.
Yeah, everything's gone, and then even when you go back to work, you're in a capacity now where you're second guessing everything you do.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to underreact, you don't want to overreact. You still have a job to do, and it's a tough place to be in. And
He wasn't allowed to leave New Jersey till today.
Yeah.
Did you have to get permission to leave New Jersey?
I just got permission to be able to leave New Jersey. I've been in New Jersey, stuck in that state
damn,
for
dude.
2 years. Couldn't
I
leave.
know people fucking on probation that are able to travel with multiple felony charges,
Dude,
but
there's people out in the street here in Philly that just shot someone 6 hours ago and they're out. I mean,
Yeah, like the crazy thing is I went back to work for 2 years, and guys who I worked on the same shift with, who were like even our lieutenants and captains stuff who I would get lunch with, or whatever the case is, because we have a smaller department, I can't even have conversations with them, but I was back to work with them for the last 2 years, and we're a pretty tight-knit department. Like, we always have holidays together, or we're always at parties for each other, and now I can't talk to any of them guys, which is a big thing, too, because that was, like Brent was just saying, those are guys who I talk to for, like, mental health stuff, or I would just, whatever it was, where we could work things out, and you'd be feeling better mentally. But I can't talk to any of them guys after I was back to work with them for 2 years, so it makes no sense.
yeah, that makes absolutely no sense. And on top of it, even if he wasn't able, how many former cops are in here? Used to be on the job. All right, for better, for worse, whether it was your choice or not, when you turn in your badge, how many guys actually hit you up just to hang out? It's the most wild fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. And I get it. If someone gets fired, you know, like Mike, let's just say you get in trouble, you're terminated, you're not a cop anymore. They're statistically, out of hundreds of fucking friends, someone should go, I know you're going through it, bro, but whenever you get a chance to, let's go grab a beer. Like, I'm your friend. I know, other than fucking touching kids and, you know, raping women, other than that shit, everything you do, I can forgive as your friend to, you know, let's go figure this out. Statistically, there should be one or two. There's never any. And even if you leave on a good note, there hopefully is still a handful of guys that you're like, wow, I never expected this guy to call me. Like, I expected these guys to call me, my squad, but it's the dude that I was on a squad with 7 years ago that I end up going to have a beer with. So, you know, not only are you going through what you're going through, but you're also going through, you're out of the loop. So therefore, you know, no one's really going to reach out to you.
Yeah, like I had guys who I never even thought that would talk to me or didn't really talk to. They're reaching out to me, and then guys who I thought were my friends, you don't even hear from them.
Yeah.
So it's a complete flip, and the good outlet to that is one of who was my sergeant, now he's a lieutenant, great guy. On like Tuesdays and Thursdays, he has a jiu-jitsu gym. It's free for cops, so that's a little bit of an outlet to go to. And I was out of the loop for a little bit, starting to go back to that, and it was good for them guys to, from there, just to reach out to me like, hey man, just come to class, which is cool. It's
Yeah, and that in itself, like, we're cops, you know. Nobody is going to tell me that I can't call my buddy, and no one is going to tell me that I can't have contact with somebody that's my friend. I get it. For their sake, you can't talk about a case because that's all they want you to do. They want you to talk about something, slip up. So that being said, is there gag orders where you cannot physically contact people or they can't contact you?
So part of my release conditions, because I was in jail, they tried to keep me detained in jail, then I got them released, so I was out of jail. But basically, I can't have contact with anybody, anyone from the department, really, who would be considered a witness.
That shit's wild, dude. Wow.
Again,
what a day to be a cop.
You got to watch the video. It's so cut and dry. It's ridiculous.
You said he was Soros backed?
Oh, yeah.
Soros?
Yep.
So how did
Yeah.
you find that out?
It's open. It's open. Like George Soros is like, I publicly
he came out and...
The real Justice PAC, I believe, donated and funded to his campaign, which is a big arm of George Soros.
For the Attorney General or...
We had him in Central Florida, and DeSantis came in and got rid of 2 of them, and then they were voted back in by the sheep that live in Florida. But I mean, there's only so much. A governor can only go so many times. Like, I'm forcibly removing you from office because you are actively targeting cops, and you're not actively targeting people that want you. Like the same one in Florida.
Targeting's illegal, so I don't get how this is all.
We have the
able to play
poster
out.
child for George Soros district attorneys in Philly, Larry Krasner. He's the model for everyone across the country.
Okay.
Yeah, and so let me give you this, for instance. Monique Sorrell or some shit like that. She's the one in Florida. There was an instance in Florida back in like 2017 or something where an Orlando police sergeant was shot execution style in a Walmart parking lot. I can't remember that shitbag's name, nor does it matter. There was a bolo put out for him for days, and they finally found him. They took him into custody. Quick, short little story in that when they found him, the bird was overhead, and they had the Marshals task force getting him out. And all of a sudden, you see a foot go flying from one of those task force guys, and that camera from that bird shoots up real quick. And he lost his eye somehow during that apprehension. We don't know how that happened.
Good camera operator.
But anyways, she refused to go after the death penalty for this guy. So it's like that. Like you execute a cop fleeing from justice, and we're taking the death penalty off the table. However, she wants to go after cops for justified shooting. Now I'm telling you this. The state of Florida, the FDLE, has cleared this guy. Once it leaves the state investigating agency, then it goes to the agent itself. His own agency cleared him of all wrongdoing. And then they have a grand jury behind his back, right? His lawyer calls him and goes, dude, I got some fucking bad news and some really fucking bad news. They had a grand jury trial without me knowing. You weren't there. You have a warrant out for your arrest for aggravated battery with a firearm. So the whole chain of command had to walk him in and turn him into the jail where he takes people. He was on a proactive squad. He takes people there every fucking night. And now he's being walked in there for a justified shooting cleared by the state of fucking Florida. And they're still fucking trying him. It's just like Sal. It's fucking sick. But to answer your question, that's what I mean.
But what makes them keep pushing? Like, if they were cleared, what makes them keep going after this one person or this particular case?
Well, first off, George Soros wants the destabilization of Western society, right?
Yeah.
So the only way to do that is to take the trust away from the society and law enforcement, right? So I use this comparison all the time. To disrupt a household, you're going to go really and tell the whole family, don't trust the dad. The guy taking care of you, the authority figure, don't trust him, he's bad. Right, yeah. So then all of your kids go, Dad, this guy's telling me you're bad, right? So that's what they're doing. So the best way to destabilize a country is at first, right then and there. I know I'm getting conspiracy, guys. I'll quit in about 30 seconds. But is to make the people afraid of law enforcement. And that's what they're doing.
It's absolutely to destabilize the country. I mean, he caught us asleep at the wheel. Genius plan, really. Take us down from the inside. Larry Krasner in Philadelphia, there's about 20-plus people that would be alive today, and I can back that statement up with receipts, would be alive today, staggering number, 20 people, if he was never the district attorney, including Jimmy Connor, who was a SWAT cop. He releases violent criminals from prison. He plays a game in the court. He lets them go, low or no bail, drops charges, and these are very, very violent people. The juvenile system in Philadelphia, carjackings have been through the roof. That's because the juveniles, and they're going through juvenile court out the back door 5 or 6 hours of process, but they're not stealing retail theft. These are shootings and robberies, pointed guns, and they're going right back on the street. And a kid gets caught doing something, and there's you're not getting in trouble, you're going to keep doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's Philadelphia. It's in a bad way because of Larry Krasner. And this is what's been modeled across the country. And it's to collapse our society.
And the destabilization, it's not just, that's the law enforcement. That's what we deal with. But, I mean, it's in everywhere. It's in your home. Telling the nuclear family that you'll be okay. Telling split homes, and I'm not sounding like a sex piece of shit, but telling women, you're fine, you don't need a man, right? So so they kill the nuclear family already. They got that. And then the next step is to cause distrust between the public and authority. And then I don't even know what the third step is, but.
I just thought the other side of that, as soon as you said that, and society does that, does say that. Hey, as a female, you be a strong female, you're fine. You don't need a man. Has anyone ever told a man, hey, you're fine, you don't need a woman? Have we ever said that? Would any man ever agree to that?
No, every man would be like, where the fuck's your wife, dude?
Yeah.
Someone lost a husband.
I said that to a woman once. I was on a date, and she said, I have my own money, I don't need a man. And I said to her, I can cook, I can clean, I can iron. What do I need a woman for? What's in it for me?
Heartache. And misery.
So
I'm at a loss for words right now.
No,
I was waiting for the punchline of the joke, and it was just sad.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, right.
The point is, the women are out there, and
Yeah,
I can only speak for the dating
This
sites.
is honest conversation. Go,
I
what
can
do you
only
got?
speak about the dating sites and the single groups I'm in on Facebook. They all talk about how they don't need a man, they don't need a man, they don't need a man, but yet they expect the man to pay for everything and they expect the man to do everything. You can't be a modern progressive woman and still expect tradition.
But that's on men today. Like that, men today have allowed
And they've
men
allowed it.
to tell women that they don't need men.
Because
right?
the men in the group, in all those things group, go, man pays for everything. You know, like the woman says to me, I was raised that the man pays for everything. He takes care of the woman. And I said, I was raised to take care of a woman. That doesn't mean I pay for everything. It means I take care of you. Now, look, I don't need a woman's money. I don't. I'm not asking a woman to take me out and pay for the stuff. But the point is the expectation. I know this kind of went in a different direction.
No, you're good.
No, this is good.
But what you were saying is, you're right. Men don't stand up and say, I don't need a woman. And they should. The way women claim that they don't need a man, man should stand up and say, I don't need a woman.
Well, but I said this last night at dinner, and I'm a firm believer that, you know, any strong man is not going to be at his peak, strongest
fact
without the right woman being the yin to his yang.
Right.
Agreed, 100%. The chief said it earlier that
Right.
without his wife behind him, he wouldn't have been able to make the decisions, and he fortunately made the right decisions because his wife was there to help him. You know,
I would say you're not wrong, but what you said would be like a negative view about it. There's a lot of things I don't need in my life, you know. So to say you don't need a woman, women could say the same thing. They don't need a man, but it's not about what you need. It's about what enhances your life. It's about it's about what makes it better. And we should absolutely make each other's lives better. But I would argue this: women probably, generally speaking, may not need a man because of the type of men we have in this world today. Be a man that a woman can't live without, and I'd give the same challenge to woman.
100%.
Be a woman that a man can't live without, and when both people have that mindset, that's when we'll have good relationship and a good nucleus of the family.
And I agree with that 100%. It's everybody's out there saying, I don't need, instead of looking for, as you said, the one that's going to enhance our lives.
Yeah, don't settle for sure. Don't settle.
Right? Yeah.
You know, but if I don't know, I just the cynical mindset of on both sides, like I don't need no man, I don't need no woman. I mean, I just don't think you're going to be at the optimal level of life. You could take all the TRT and your butt cheek you want, but at the end of the day, you do need a yin to your yang. So.
Well, I think a good example is that was, Bo Butler was up here, obviously, and his wife, Amanda. I told him when I saw his video for the first time, I said, I didn't just see him up there. I was like, I know this guy's got a family behind him.
Yeah.
Like, I know he's got a strong wife. So, like you said, you won't be at your peak, but Amanda, I could tell he had a strong family behind him. That's why he was able to do what he did.
Well, look at anything like this, right? You live a very complex lifestyle. You got a lot of stress going on. You have multiple people. Let's say you're in a shooting, right? You got lawyers, union guys, fucking criminal defense, shit talkers, social media, people trying to kill you. All of this going on. Who do you fucking go to? I can't, go to your union rep. The lawyer's like, hey, let's not do that. Union rep's going, oh, fucking, the lawyers just want money. You got to have somebody that has your best interest in mind when you go to console them about any advice. Like, what should I do? Because your well-being means that's also her and her family's well-being. So she's not going to, she's not going to give you bad advice. She's going to be the only person in the world, whether or not it's your best friends, your coworkers, your business partners, she's going to be the one that goes, this is what I suggest you do because your best interest in mind.
Yeah, like I could speak for my wife. I remember I got my phone call when I was at jail, and I called her on the phone, and we weren't even married at that point. We were engaged. And I called her on the phone, and we were supposed to have our cake tasting the next day. So she's going to the cake tasting with her mom. And I said, you don't have to stand by me and deal with all this. Like, if you want to leave, like, you're free to leave. Like, We're not married. You know, like this is going to be a whole lot of stress for you to deal with. And she said, no, I'm going to be right here every step of the way, and you're going to come out on top of this. And throughout this whole process, you know, I get my moments where I go through it, and you know, I look at there's times where I get up and I'm with my daughter early in the morning, and I'm looking at her and we're laughing and playing, and I just like look at her and I think, you know, I can't lose my daughter, I can't lose my wife, and I get into the conversation of that with her, and she's like, you're not going anywhere because you didn't do anything wrong, you're going to come out on top, and she's been there every step of the way, and that's really what has been pushing me and motivating me to just keep my faith, keep strong, is her. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be doing as well as I am.
Absolutely. And you said this a little bit earlier, Tyler. If we live in the greatest country in the world. We live in the greatest country that the world has ever seen to this date. And no one is ever going to take down this country externally. And I do believe this, and you know this, I'm not a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, you're no fun, bro.
I love shutting down conspiracy theories.
You shut it down on Sean Ryan's fucking live. Everybody was like, God, man, Brent.
But this is just irrefutable. No one, China, Russia, they can join forces. No one is coming across that pond and taking down America. 100% guaranteed. The only person taking down America is America. And the only way to take down America is through division. The only way to take down America is pitting men against women, pitting black against white, pitting Democrats against Republicans. You go down the list, pitting the haves against the have-nots. That is the only thing that's going to take down America. And to give them a tip of the hat, to be honest with you, however it is they decided they were going to do it, however long they've been plotting it, they have done an amazing job of that execution. That's a tip of the hat to them, and that should be a slap in the face to us for taking that bait.
Well, there's I could never find it, but there's a video of a Russian, I don't know what the hell he is, but he talks about destabilizing America. It's gonna,
right. It's the KGB.
Yeah, it's gonna take generations of patience, but you look back at when that was filmed, and then you look at today, you're like, holy shit, they did it.
Yeah, nailed it. Just step by step by step, they've executed it. It was a KGB Russia thing. They've executed it flawlessly.
You didn't look Chinese.
No, and I hate to say this, it's so ridiculous because outside influence, you can blame outside influence all you want. It goes back to the family being raised right. Just saying no. I don't accept that argument. Most people here, like for you, in your family, you just didn't accept that argument, and you've decided to make your wife a priority, and your wife has decided to make you a priority. And there's no argument between who needs who and who doesn't. I don't know. This is the part I don't know. I don't know how we've accepted it, but I know this. The simple answer is just this. You don't have to accept it. And as far apart as Republicans and Democrats are, and I get that. I mean, I could, gosh, don't get me wrong. I could sit here and argue with myself about this. But I assure you, the only thing we talk about is what we disagree on. You're going to sit here and tell me that Republicans and Democrats don't agree on something, and there's not something we can use to put this thing forward? I don't buy that. But the only thing that gets clicks, the only thing that gets traction, the only thing people care about is drama and us versus them.
And controversy.
And controversy, absolutely.
So the last thing we're going to talk about before we end this and then we have beers with all of you guys and hang out is I want Reagan to talk about what he wanted to talk about, and then we got on a tangent. He didn't even get to talk about it. The wildfires in LA and diversity in the fire department. And I want your opinion on that, and then we're going to, as non-firefighters, we're going to give our opinion on it. So take this mic.
I don't really want to talk about it.
You don't want to talk about it? Why?
I talked to somebody before, and I don't think I have all the facts yet. So if I was to go on here and spit and I would be taken away from the guys that are in LA fighting the fire right now. So if I was to go on here and throw my conspiracy theories around and not acknowledge what they're doing.
You don't need proof, dude. You just start saying shit.
I mean, I love shooting from the hip, but I mean, they're sending me videos of them actively, you know, this one fireman who he lost his home and he's sending me videos of it. So I sit here and I feel bad if I was to just sit here and shoot from the hip and not have all my facts straight. So I was gonna just pop off on all my conspiracy theories, but I feel like I would be taken away from them in the actual fight because they're running out of water. They're just grabbing cones and stuff. I don't know. You've probably seen the videos of them throwing just water bottles on the fire. I mean, they're doing anything they can to just put these. So if I was just shoot from the hip and
I got one for you.
I'd be taken away from them.
I heard Oregon sent 80 fire trucks down, and they got stopped at the border of California for emissions testing.
Where was that at?
They got
true?
stopped for emissions
Okay.
testing.
That's what I heard.
Conspiracy. We're just putting it out there. We don't have
I hadn't heard that one, but I hadn't heard that one, but
Dude, I mean, it's California. It's not out of the realm of possibility. They're fucking nuts.
Well, do they have ways to take? And I'm asking you as a retard because I don't know. Do they have ways to like actually take care of like from the sky? Like we were watching, me and my wife were watching like clips of Canadian birds landing on skimming water, collecting water, and then they're rerouting them, and then they're dropping them on California.
yeah,
Is that what we're having to resort to? Is Canada?
That I don't know, but you would think by this point that we would have enough resources to take care of these things. I do know that they ran out of water, which still blows my mind because in 2019 that all the reservoirs were filled up. There was plenty of water. California's had record number rainfall the last couple of years, so there's no drought. And then in the last couple of years, they decided to drain those reservoirs. So apparently it was to save a fish, but the same thing happened in Maui too. They ran out of water. So it makes you wonder. Like again, I don't want to take away from what they're doing, but it makes you wonder why these places are running out of water when this has been an ongoing issue since time.
What
Wildfire,
do you think about one of the Christians, one of the chiefs, one of them? What do you think about her stroking out on a video where somebody's just asking her basic questions and she looks like she is having a stroke essentially, staring off into the distance and not answering any questions for about 4 minutes?
Are you talking about the mayor?
Yeah. Is that the mayor?
Yeah, the mayor.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's the mayor. Okay.
So she's just refusing, just acting like she's not hearing. She's obviously just avoiding the questions because she doesn't have answers, right? She doesn't. All of them are puppets. I'm just gonna. That's my opinion. They're all puppets. They're just in place there. People will get mad at me because I say they're DEI hires, but the fire chief.
That puppet's making $439,000 a year.
Yeah.
Milks more than the president of the United States.
Right. So.
Whoa! Is that was that created for them, or is that how the fire chiefs have always been?
Well, the fire chief came out and said that
I don't
it was
know,
a complete
but
failure.
I like that job. I'll put on a wig. I don't give a fuck.
Well, it's easy to complain, or it's easy to claim failure by the city after the fact. It's hard to say no before when you see the greater picture, when you see that there's not going to be water, and you see these issues like Bo Butler. He saw the issue from a bird's eye view and took a stand. But when you have people like fire chiefs that have no backbone, people that in leadership that have no backbone, that can't, I guess, have a hill to die on, then that's the result is what you get. Like, because as far as clearing out the brush too, like, so I don't remember who mentioned it, but it's probably Trump or something, but talking about clearing out the brush, like that's been known for a decade now. I've been hearing about that, how they don't want people to go out there and clear the brush because it's endangering wildlife. You can't cut a line on a wildfire more than a certain amount of feet because it endangers wildlife. But they'd rather the fire. Yeah, exactly. So, and these have been known issues, and they just continue to let it burn, basically.
So,
the question is why?
Stepping away from Los Angeles, let's go into firefighter culture in general.
Okay.
Reagan from Conduct Unbecoming, the Unbecoming podcast. Your thoughts on, and I've been meaning to ask you this on a podcast forever, but we haven't done one. You haven't come down yet to Florida, and I haven't been up there to Texas to do one. But what's your thoughts on fire safety and you guys being, because I can tell you all day what cops, what our hands are tied. We can't do, I'm sorry, citizen, there's just things we can and cannot do. What's your take on firefighters being handcuffed essentially because of the safety industry?
Well, people think we hate rules. We hate the NFPA, which is the National Fire Protection Association, which is basically who governs us. But we just hate overreach. We just hate the progression of rules that don't make sense, that prohibit us from doing our jobs. Same thing with cops, I'm sure. So when you have to maintain, there's a rule 2 in, 2 out. In order for you to make entry into a building, you have to have 2 firefighters on the outside in case you go down. Well, you have $1 million worth of, you have several $1 million worth of apparatus sitting on the outside. You have $10,000 worth of protective gear on your body. You have an air pack. You have all the resources you need to go in there and try to put the fire out or save somebody, but we're prohibited. Now, technically, there's a clause that says if you hear somebody screaming or you know there's a known victim, you can go in there and pull somebody out. But that's subjective because each department has their own version of that. So
Some called exigent circumstances for cops. Like the Constitution kind of goes out the window.
Right.
If I walk up lawfully to your door, and then I hear something where somebody's in danger, I can boot that door, and I don't have to have a warrant because of exigent circumstances. So it's the same thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I heard that a lot
same.
when I busted.
That's all he said. Exigent circumstances.
When I used to break down doors, I was always because someone was screaming on the other side. So that's why I was able to.
Were they screaming before or after you kicked in the door?
Well, I didn't say when, but they were screaming. And
same concept.
Just a segue.
Yeah.
Camp Hero. Camp Freedom in Pennsylvania. 2,800 acres, 2,300 acre retreat for disabled vets, PTSD guys. And it's no charge. So there's a lot of stuff coming online that's available to guys that need help, women that need help. They started out with veterans. They're now getting a lot of 9/11 guys from the city and cops. And they're very in tuned and they're very willing. In fact, they were on our podcast yesterday that didn't air yet, so hang in there. And there's a lot more coming online. You saw there was a doctor here today who's really deeply involved in bringing this whole thing to the forefront, with the mental health awareness. So, for me, thanks for, by the way, thanks for coming out. This is getting really deep in the weeds in some of these conversations that some people might not be able to follow the depths of it. I mean, certainly I can't. But the point is that this is the first time we've done this together, and I'm really happy and thankful you guys are giving us your time. This podcast, I don't know if we could reach 100 million people yet today, but I'm hoping that it hits that number. And then
it's live now. We've had a couple hundred people in the chats already.
Then we could probably get paid for this even, so that would be great.
Well, paid us, but it's all going back to paying everybody else here.
Yeah,
so
that's what I mean.
One of those tip your bartenders type thing.
Right. So I personally, I want to thank everybody for showing. I know we're about to cut down here, and it's getting tired. I'm 64 years old yesterday, so I need a fucking break. And I just want to say thank you for coming, bringing your whole family. I mean, if it wasn't for your
the Sal Squad,
the whole squad showed up, and they supported us. They support us at the refreshments, and I'm ready for a nap. And I want to thank you guys. Really, you're amazing. And I said my piece. God bless.
So, to end this, I don't feel obligated because you guys are all government workers. So it's like, does anybody have any questions? And everyone's like, I have a million, but I'm not going to ask them. Does anybody have any questions for this panel at all? And I'm going to give you the microphone and make you say it in front of everybody.
Come on.
Here's one question. Is it Regan's birthday? Yes, it is.
It's Reagan's birthday? It's your birthday today?
No. All right. It's just a question.
That's a conspiracy.
Question.
But yeah, to wrap it up, we want to be very upfront and honest with everybody. You can ask Brent how many people he's killed. Doesn't matter. You can ask him anything. But we just didn't want to end it without offering that, and we didn't want you guys to feel like you couldn't ask or you couldn't be part of it. But we are going to end this and then go full on hanging out with everybody, and it'll be kind of like a party atmosphere. But here now, does anybody forever hold your peace until next time? Anybody got any questions? Yeah, I kind of put it up there.
Elliot Collins. You have a question? No? No questions?
No, dude. No.
Hey, let me say, Elliot, I didn't know he was coming. Elliot came here. Me and Elliot served in Afghanistan together. He was in 20th Special Forces group with me and came here. It's a small world. Can't make it up.
He was
Happy
Philly?
with that. That's a statement. That's a statement, not a question. All right.
Well,
So I just wanted to call you out, Elliot. I just want to call you out. What you got? The question is, how much does the podcast help me transition? I hate to say it. I do hate to say this because I don't want to sound like like super macho or people to think like that because I transitioned well that everyone should. I actually. I didn't.
I don't like that look.
Yeah,
I do not. By the way,
all right, this is going to be the exact opposite. But this is an honest answer. I didn't necessarily always want to do this podcast. I didn't always want for this podcast to get as big as it is. It went from fun to a job at times,
for sure.
and we've talked about that. So. I did want to do this podcast because I wanted it to be fun. And when we started it, it was fun. And I'm not telling you I don't enjoy the podcast. I absolutely did. But it turned into something that, that was more of a business. And the great thing about it, the love that came from the podcast and us doing what we think is good things, which is not tearing down the veteran community, but holding people accountable, also came with a lot of hate. And I read the comments and I see that. So I didn't need anything to help me transition. I didn't. I did Iraq, I did Afghanistan, I did Syria, all of them, multiple times. When I retired, I felt like my book was closed with the military, so I was able to transition because I felt like my last chapter was written, and not in a Navy SEAL way, like in a metaphorical way. So I was good.
Yeah. So and with this podcast,
absolutely.
like it's we did start it with being first responder oriented. We even talked about we joked it's not going to be a special ops podcast.
Yeah.
We joked about that. The way it turns out is that just everybody, we joke about this too. You put Navy SEAL on the fucking header, it's going to have 300,000 likes and watches and views. There's just something about our culture where first responders need more support than anything, but they don't support the videos about first responders.
Yep.
Overall, I'm not saying you guys wouldn't, but so we in turn as a business move, our goal is for first responders to be upfront and prioritized, right? The Navy SEALs don't need any more help. They can have a SEAL podcast to get them out of hot water if they need it. Our podcast, First Responders Coffee Company, First Responders Cigar Company, I'm an active cop. Like, we put first responder issues first, but sometimes you do have to integrate the sexy stories in there because, what we did every time we do a Tim Kennedy episode or a Rob O'Neill type episode, our numbers jump up because it gets to people that have never heard us. And now, instead of talking to 1,000 people about issues in cop work or firefighter, we're now talking to 30,000 people to listen to that. So it's one of those, it's a necessary evil to do, but it also gives us a broader range. We talk about, we've had episodes where we didn't talk about military or, the last one we did, we talked about the hurricanes that came through North Carolina. We just did an episode on that.
We had Mike Perry
Mike Perry
on. We've had all sorts of things that weren't. But first responders will always be our main priority.
Yeah, and then we linked up with the Unbecoming podcast, and we're like, we need to set up an umbrella to put people like us in touch because it was Sal and Barbara that got us in touch with Nick. We didn't know fucking good cop, bad cop existed. I had known Mike's story for sure. Great story. I had no idea they had a fucking podcast together. So it takes networking like that. So underneath the umbrella of of this network, we're able to now wrap everybody up. They're all veteran first responder podcasts. We're gonna have blogs. We have people that want to write blogs, and that's just kind of how it's gonna be. And eventually, it will be a counterculture to what's already out there, the narratives that are out there, and a more real take on issues, because you're not going to see Black Rifle Coffee Company coming up and talking about some of the shit we saw, or shit we talked about. It's the shit we brought up. No one in their right mind, because the sponsors aren't going to like that. The $1 million sponsors, or Black Rifle in general, that's public. They're a public company now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, their board of people aren't going to allow them to have. I mean, no offense, but someone like Mike, I'm just saying, that's bad for business. Oh, you guys are condoning. No, we're having someone with life experience come on and tell their story. That's the difference. So, again, really appreciate you guys coming out here. Do you have a question?
He said, how many in here are veterans? Yep. So,
there you go.
all right, put a pin on that for a second, because I got a question for you. I just want to make sure everyone listening, got to hear that question or that statement, which is, if you were a veteran or are a veteran, please go to the VA and get a free screening, because you'll catch cancer. You won't catch cancer. That's not right. You have a potential to detect cancer and anything else that may have happened to you. And it's free, and there's no reason not to. This is what a veteran might say. It's free. There's no reason why not to. Did you have a good experience with the VA, scheduling it and getting in with no issues with your experience? And he said, yeah. And what veteran hospital did you go to? Well, I'm glad you brought that up, and it's not that I'm anti-VA, but I will say this, because I've actually never been to the VA, and at some point I will.
Delta Force is anti-VA.
But I hear a lot of stories about. I hear great stories about the VA. Like, you wouldn't believe this. I had a really good experience with the VA, and I hear a lot of the opposite. The VA is the horrible in this way. Everyone hates it. The VAs are all run differently, but there's always that stigma that all VAs suck, which isn't necessarily true either. So I'll say this: there's, I don't know, a fourth of the people in here are veterans. Has anyone had a bad VA experience?
Yeah, but
a few out of all of them. I'll ask you real quick. What was your bad VA experience? Yeah. Just horrible customer service.
Well, it is the government, by the way.
Right,
So
yeah.
if you're relying on, here's the thing: is the VA has been very good to me. don't really have any bad things to say about them. I mean, you check my bank account every month, they take care of me. But it is the government. So if it is on you, if you have a really bad issue, that's the beautiful thing about the United States of America, is that if you can afford private care and you go, fuck that, VA's gonna take care of it, and you get shit care, that's on you. That's the fucking government. That's just me. But again, they don't do any bad, but they might not be the best. So if you're gonna make them your priority as healthcare, just be wary. It's the government. It's not any doctors in particular. It's really not even the VA in particular. It's the fact that it's the United States government.
Right. And the government isn't traditionally known for their customer service.
The government's here to help you.
And I agree with you. But you know, with that, I mean, that's your bad experience because of customer service. How hard? Your job is to help veterans, and the least you can do is be thankful and be kind to them. That's, I think, the least I could ask of you. But they can't even do that. So I don't disagree with your point with them. Wait times. Yeah, what is this, Canada?
We're gonna give you the last thing. Obviously, you're being sponsored by the VA, so no, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. Wait, what is it? Hold on, what is it called? Yeah, I want to give him a plug, but I can't hear what he's saying.
Is it the same as the Hunter 7 Foundation? Yeah, the Hunter 7 Foundation. I've heard a lot of good things about them. And smoke pits and cancer-related things and chemical-related. Yeah, the Hunter 7 Foundation is a real one, for sure. And there's a lot of nonprofits out there that have a pretty high overhead, and they have CEOs making $250,000 as a nonprofit. It's ridiculous. The Hunter 7 Foundation's a good one. I know about them. Absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned them.
That being said, guys, that is a wrap. So thank you for coming. Please
Great.
stay.
Thank you.
Please hang out. Have a beer with us. I've got to pee really bad, but we'll do this again soon. Thank you, guys.